You are listening to the Coins, Currency, and American History podcast, presented by Littleton Coin Company.
Every great civilization leaves behind its ruins, its art, and its heroes. But the story of America can be told through something smaller, something we can hold in our hands. A coin. Coins are the fingerprints of a nation. This is the story of the United States of America. From colonies to social experiment to global economic leader.
Episode 28. The Great Depression, the New Deal, and Managed Capitalism. The crash came on a Tuesday in late October 1929. Stock prices plunged, fortunes evaporated, and within months, the optimism of the Roaring Twenties gave way to fear that spread across the country like a long shadow. Factories slowed, farms failed, lines formed at soup kitchens. For many Americans, the promise of steady work and a better life suddenly felt very far away. This was the Great Depression, and out of its depths would come one of the most ambitious experiments in American economic life: Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal. It aimed not just to relieve immediate suffering, but to reshape the relationship between government, business, and everyday citizens. Historians often describe it as the birth of managed capitalism in the United States. And through it all, the nation's coins and currency told their own quiet story of upheaval and adaptation. The stock market had climbed for years on borrowed money and rising confidence, but in the fall of 1929, the bubble burst. On October 29th, panic selling wiped out billions in value. Banks began to fail, credit dried up. By 1932, factories sat idle and unemployment reached nearly 25%. Wheat and cotton prices collapsed, leaving farmers unable to pay mortgages, even as dust storms swept across the plains, turning fields to desert and families into migrants. The human cost was enormous. Men who had built cars and appliances now sold pencils or apples on the street corners. Families doubled up in apartments or moved into makeshift shantytowns called Hoovervilles. The early 1930s left deep and visible marks on nearly every aspect of life, ones that are still seen by coin and currency collectors today. Silver dollar production halted entirely after 1928 and would not resume until 1934. Dimes, quarters, and half dollars saw sharply reduced mintages in 1932 and 1933. These low mintage dates became prized by numismatists and historians as tangible evidence of how economic hardship directly shaped the pocket change of the time. In November 1932, Franklin Delano Roosevelt won the presidency in a landslide. He took office in March 1933 with the country in crisis. In his inaugural address, he famously declared, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." Roosevelt moved quickly. He called Congress into special session and launched what became known as the first 100 days. A wave of legislation followed, organized around three goals: relief for the unemployed, recovery for the economy, and long-term reform to prevent future collapses. Programs like the Civilian Conservation Corps put young men to work planting trees and building trails. The Works Progress Administration employed writers, artists, and laborers on public projects. The Tennessee Valley Authority brought electricity and flood control to a vast region, while banking reforms restored confidence and the Social Security Act laid groundwork for supporting the elderly. These efforts marked a fundamental shift. The federal government took a far more active role in steering the economy than it had in previous generations. One of FDR's most dramatic early moves involved gold. On April 5, 1933, Roosevelt issued Executive Order 6102. It required Americans to turn in most gold coins, bullion, and gold certificates to the Federal Reserve in exchange for paper currency. Private ownership of gold for monetary purposes became largely illegal, with limited exceptions for jewelry and certain rare coins. And he didn't stop there. The following year, the Gold Reserve Act of 1934 went further. It transferred Federal Reserve gold holdings to the U.S. Treasury, raised the official price of gold from $20.67 to $35 per ounce, and effectively ended the domestic gold standard. These policies had immediate effects on numismatics. Gold coins disappeared from circulation. Many were melted. Yet one chapter from this era stands out in collector lore. In 1933, the Philadelphia Mint had struck more than 445,000 St. Gaudens double eagles, the magnificent $20 gold pieces designed by Augustus St. Gaudens years earlier. But before they could enter circulation, the new gold policies took hold. Most were melted, but a small number was stolen from the mint. The crime led to decades of Secret Service investigations. Today, only one 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle is legally authorized for private ownership, the Weizmann specimen. It remains the most valuable gold coin in the world, a dramatic symbol of that turbulent year. Even as gold left everyday use, other coins reflected the changing times. In 1932, the Washington quarter made its debut to mark the bicentennial of George Washington's birth. Designed by John Flanagan, it features a portrait of the first president on the obverse and an eagle on the reverse. It quickly became a staple of American commerce. 6 years later, in 1938, the Jefferson nickel replaced the buffalo design. Felix Schlagg's design featured Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his Virginia home, Monticello, on the reverse. And while the Washington quarter and Jefferson nickel were both new, the coins represented continuity and stability at a time when many Americans craved exactly that. The United States mints continued operations, though with the constraints of the era. Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco struck the circulating silver and base metal coins that families relied on for daily transactions. United States currency notes also evolved. The shift from large-size to small-size notes, which began in 1929, was largely complete by the early 1930s, making bills easier to handle and cheaper to produce. Gold certificates, once redeemable for the metal itself, were withdrawn from public circulation. However, special high-denomination notes appeared for internal use among Federal Reserve banks. The most striking example is the $100,000 gold certificate of 1934, featuring President Woodrow Wilson. It is the highest denomination U.S. currency note ever printed, though never intended for general circulation. These changes reflected a broader move away from metal-backed money toward a system managed more directly by government institutions. By the end of the decade, the New Deal had not fully ended the Depression. Unemployment remained high until the massive production demands of World War II finally pulled the economy out of its slump. Yet, the era left a lasting framework. In the decades that followed, government played a larger role in regulating banks, supporting workers, and stabilizing markets. This approach, often called managed capitalism, sought to harness the power of private enterprise even as it provided safeguards against its worst excesses. For collectors, this era in American history offers rich material. Low mintage coins from the early 30s, the story of the infamous 1933 double eagles, and the new Washington quarters and Jefferson nickels all connect us to those difficult yet transformative years. The Great Depression tested America's resilience like few events in its history. Roosevelt's New Deal responded with energy and innovation, reshaping expectations about the role of government in economic life. Gold policies shifted dramatically, and through it all, the United States Mint kept working, doing its part to bolster both the economy and the spirit of the American people with new coins that reminded them the nation had seen and survived dark days before. The coins and paper money of the time preserve a tangible link to the hopes, dreams, struggles, and adaptations of ordinary Americans. Many of those pieces remain in collections today, studied and appreciated by those who value both history and the hobby that brings it to life. In the next episode of Coins, Currency, and American History, World War II brings devastation to the globe, while special coins and currency help the Allies win the war. Delegates from 44 nations gather in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, desperately trying to save economies without triggering another Great Depression, and a new world currency framework ushers in an age of unprecedented American dominance. Next time, World War II, Bretton Woods, and a new world currency. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Coins, Currency, and American History podcast presented by Littleton Coin Company. You can find out more about coins and currency in our free Learn Center at www.littletoncoin.com/learn. It's filled with fascinating facts about U.S. coins, world coins, ancient coins, paper money, and more, as well as helpful tips for collectors of all levels. You'll even find free collector guides, checklists, and virtual albums to help you get started and keep track of your growing collection. And while you're there, be sure to check out our online store. Visit www.littletoncoin.com today.